They called me strong. I'd learned to answer to it, the way you answer to any name that isn't quite yours. It was 2 in the morning when I finished Mrs. Chen's wedding coat. My fingers had been bleeding for an hour, but I kept stitching. The candle was burning low. December wind rattled the window like it was trying to get in, trying to remind me how cold the world was. I didn't need reminding. 6 months since Henry died. 6 months of waking surprised I was still breathing. Still moving, still pretending that counted as living. The silk under my fingers was expensive. Beautiful. Mrs. Chen's daughter was getting married in the spring, and the coat needed taking in. Mrs. Chen had asked me 3 weeks ago, her eyes apologetic. I'd said yes before she could offer payment. I always said yes. I kept 2 ledgers after Henry died. One for money, never enough. One for favors, always too many given. None asked back. Both books showed the same truth. I was running out. The building was quiet around me. The O'Malleys on the 2nd floor. Sleeping sound. Mr. Kowalski above us, probably dreaming in Polish about a family he hadn't seen in 5 years. Mrs. Chen across the hall, resting before her daughter's big day. All of them sleeping while I stitched and bled and counted. I counted everything now. Days since the mine took Henry. 47 meals I'd skipped so Emily could eat. 19 times I'd watched the O'Malley children without asking payment. 7 coats I'd mended for neighbors too proud or too poor to pay. 3 weeks I'd brought soup to sick families, using vegetables I couldn't afford to spare. I helped because idle hands give grief room to grow. Because if I stopped moving, I'd have to feel. Because Henry would have wanted me to be good to our neighbors. Because if I was useful, I mattered. My wedding ring was loose on my thinning finger. I'd noticed that last week. Noticed I could spin it all the way around now. Gold circle on bone. Henry had slipped it on 7 years ago. His hands, so gentle. Those hands were gone now. Crushed in a mine collapse, along with everything else I'd counted on. The candle made shadows on the walls like ghosts. Maybe they were. This whole building was full of ghosts. The people we used to be before this hard land took pieces of us. Emily was asleep in the corner, wrapped in both our blankets because I'd burned our last chair for heat 2 days ago. 8 years old, and already she'd learned to sleep through her mother's midnight sewing. Already she'd learned that Mama works while other children dream. What was I teaching her? I folded Mrs. Chen's coat, wrapped it in paper I'd saved from flour sacks. Made it look like a gift. Tomorrow I'd give it to her with a smile. Add it to the ledger. Keep counting. It's what I did now. Count things I'd given. Count days since Henry died. Count the ways I was failing my daughter. The arithmetic never came out right. Christmas Eve morning came cold and gray. I woke at the table, my cheek pressed against wood. Mrs. Chen's wrapped coat under my arm like I was protecting it. Or maybe it was protecting me. Hard to tell anymore what was shelter and what was burden. Emily was already awake, pulling on her shoes. Her cheeks were red from cold. We'd run out of coal 3 days ago. I'd been burning furniture since. Mama, it's Christmas Eve. She was smiling, still believed in miracles at 8 years old. I envied her that. I made myself smile back. So it is, sweetheart. Will Santa come tonight? My heart cracked a little more. We'll see. Emmy, we'll see. After she left for school, I sat down at the table with my coin purse, counted out the silver dollars one by one. 7. I had $7 between me and January. I'd counted them 100 times, like the number might change if I shuffled them different. Like God rewarded persistence with multiplication. $7. Rent was $5. Due the day after Christmas. Coal for 2 weeks was $3 if I could find it cheap. If Mr. Peterson at the fuel yard took pity. A small gift for Emily was $1. Maybe. If I could find something secondhand. I needed $9. I had 7. The mathematics of desperation, I'd gotten good at that kind of arithmetic. I thought about the mine that day. Couldn't help it. Some memories have their own schedule, come calling whether you invite them or not. The men had come to our door on a Tuesday, told me there'd been a collapse, told me Henry was gone, told me I should be grateful it was quick. Grateful. As if losing your husband quick was a blessing. I'd stood in this same kitchen, same winter light coming through the dirty window, and felt myself turn to stone. Had to. Stone doesn't break. Stone doesn't cry. Stone survives. But stone doesn't live either. The 7 coins sat on the table like a broken rosary. I'd prayed over them, bargained with them, begged them to multiply. They just stared back, cold and insufficient. I heard Emily's footsteps on the stairs that afternoon. She burst through the door, cheeks red from cold and running, eyes bright with whatever 8-year-olds think about when they're not worrying about their mothers. "Mama, we learned a Christmas song today. Want to hear it?" I was at the stove, trying to make soup from a potato and some withered carrots, trying to make nothing look like something. "Of course, sweetheart." She sang, voice high and pure, about bells and snow and joy. I listened and stirred and felt my heart break in new ways. She had her father's voice. Same sweetness, same hope. When she finished, she looked at me. Really looked. "Mama." "Yes? Emmy? Why don't you smile with your eyes anymore?" The spoon clattered against the pot. I turned away, pretended to check the soup. "What do you mean?" "Sweetheart, you smile with your mouth, but your eyes look sad. They've looked sad since Papa died. I couldn't breathe right. Couldn't turn around. If I turned around, she'd see me breaking. I'm fine. Emmy, just tired." "You're always tired." She wasn't accusing, just stating fact. 8 years old, and already she was parenting me. Worrying about my smile while I worried about rent. What kind of mother had I become? I sent her to bed early that night. Told her Santa came sooner if children slept. She believed me. Climbed into our bed with her worn doll, pulling the blankets up to her chin. "Mama will. We have a good Christmas." I sat beside her, smoothed her hair. Hair like Henry's, too. Everything about her reminded me of him. "We'll have each other. Sweetheart, that's what matters." She smiled, still believed me, still trusted that Mama had answers. I kissed her forehead. "Sleep now." After her breathing went soft and steady, I sat at the table again. $7. Christmas Eve. A daughter who saw through my brave face to the grief underneath. I'd survived the mine-taking Henry, survived the landlord's monthly threats, survived winter's first cruel kiss. But Emily's question that cut deeper than any of it. I found the letter when I was tidying Emily's school things. It was tucked inside her arithmetic book, folded careful. Her handwriting going wobbly where she'd pressed too hard with the pencil. "Dear Santa, I don't need a doll or ribbons. Can you make Mama smile again like before Papa died? She tries, but I can tell she's sad all the time. That's all I want. Love, Emily." My hands started shaking. Had to sit down. Had to put the letter on the table next to those 7 useless dollars and just stare at it. 8 years old, and she was asking Santa to fix her mother. I'd thought I was protecting her. Thought my brave face was a shield. Thought if I just kept moving, kept working, kept pretending, she wouldn't see how broken I was. Turns out children see everything, see through everything. Especially love trying to disguise itself as strength. All this time I'd been so careful. Smiled when she was looking. Cried only after she slept. Worked myself sick to give her normal. And what had it gotten me? A daughter who spent her Christmas wish on my smile. The letter sat there, accusing me, showing me my failure in pencil and wobbly letters. What kind of mother makes her child worry like this? I picked up the letter again. Read it 3 more times. Each time the words hit harder. She hadn't asked for toys. Hadn't asked for pretty things or sweet things. Just asked for her mama back. I'd thought I was surviving for her. Turned out I'd just been surviving. There's a difference. The tears came then, first real tears since Henry's funeral. I'd held them back for 6 months, held everything back. Held myself together with spit and pride and sheer stubborn will. But Emily's letter broke through all of it. I cried for Henry, for the life we'd planned that ended in a mine shaft, for the woman I used to be who smiled with her whole face, for the mother I'd wanted to be versus the ghost I'd become. Cried until there was nothing left but empty. The room was dark now. Emily sleeping. Me sitting at the table with $7 and a letter and no answers. Outside, somewhere, people were probably getting ready for Christmas. Singing carols, baking pies, doing all the things families do when they're not counting coins and ways they've failed. I looked at the $7. Looked at Emily's letter. Neither one was enough. Nothing was enough. My knees hit the floor before I knew I was moving. Hands pressed against the bed where Emily slept. Peaceful. Trusting. When had I last prayed Henry's funeral, maybe? Before that. Every night. After Henry died, I'd stopped. What was the point of praying to a God who let minds collapse? But I was out of options, out of strength, out of everything except the truth I'd been choking on for months. I can't do this alone anymore. Whispered it to the dark, to God. Maybe to myself, to whoever was listening. I've tried. I've worked. I've given everything. It's not enough. I'm not enough. If there's anything left for us, please. The words ran out. What else was there to say? I fell asleep there, kneeling beside the bed. Emily's letter clutched in one hand. My pride crumpled in the other. Didn't know if I was praying or surrendering. Didn't know if God was listening or if I was just talking to the dark. But I'd finally said it. The words I'd been fighting for 6 months. I need help. I can't do this alone. That night, I learned the difference between giving up and letting go. Giving up is surrender to despair. Letting go is surrender to grace. I just didn't know which one I was doing yet. Emily's shriek woke me Christmas morning. For one terrible moment, I thought something was wrong. My heart was already racing, already preparing for whatever new disaster Christmas brought. When I heard her laugh, real laughter. The kind I hadn't heard from her in months. Mama, Mama. Come look. I pulled myself off the floor, joints stiff from sleeping wrong, and stumbled to the door. Emily was standing there in her nightgown, pointing. There was an evergreen wreath on our door. I stared at it. Fresh pine, tied with real ribbon. The smell hit me sharp and green and alive. When had I last smelled something growing? Where did it come from? Emily's eyes were huge. I didn't know. Couldn't answer. Just stood there looking at this circle of green on our door like it was going to explain itself. Look, Mama, there's more. She pointed down. There was a basket on our porch, covered with a cloth. I bent down, pulled the cloth back. Bread, real bread. Still warm, butter wrapped in paper, jam in a jar, sugar, coffee, real coffee. The kind I hadn't been able to afford in months. Dried apples, a small sack of flour. Who left this? Emily was already reaching for the bread. I don't know, sweetheart. My voice sounded strange, far away. We brought the basket inside. Emily was chattering, excited, already breaking off pieces of bread. I just stood there trying to calculate, trying to count the value, trying to figure out who I owed and how much, and how I'd ever pay it back. Each gift felt like an accusation wrapped in kindness. Someone had been watching. Someone had seen through my careful walls. I'd worked so hard to hide my need. Apparently, I'd failed at that too. I made coffee, real coffee. The smell filled our tiny room, warm and rich. I'd forgotten what that smelled like. Forgotten that kitchens could smell like something other than thin soup and desperation. Emily spread butter on bread, eyes closed like she was praying. Maybe she was. Mama, it's so good. I watched her eat, watched joy on her face. My own coffee sat untouched. I was too busy counting. Not blessing's debts. How much did I owe? To whom could I ever repay this? Mama, aren't you hungry? I made myself take a bite. The bread was perfect, fresh and soft, and everything bread should be. It tasted like shame and relief all mixed together. We were halfway through breakfast when there was a knock at the door. I opened it. Nobody there. Just another basket at my feet. This one full of fabric scraps, quality pieces wool, cotton, silk remnants. The kind of fabric I could actually sew with. The kind worth more than I'd held in months. And behind our building, stacked neat against the wall, was firewood. A week's worth, at least. I stood there staring. Emily came up beside me. It's magic. Mama. Christmas magic. Magic. Is that what we were calling it? I brought the fabric inside with shaking hands. Ran my seamstress fingers over the pieces. Someone knew I sewed. Someone knew exactly what I needed. Someone had been paying attention. The thought should have comforted me. Instead, it terrified me. Hours passed. Morning became afternoon. I stopped trying to stop Emily's joy. Stopped trying to count the cost. Started wondering if I remembered how to feel my own happiness. We baked bread together, using the gifted flour. First time I'd baked for pleasure in months. Emily got flour on her nose, her hair, everywhere. She was laughing. Really laughing. I heard it like music I'd forgotten existed. The dough was soft under my hands. Real yeast. Rising proper. The smell as it baked filled every corner of our room. Made it feel like a home instead of a place I survived in. Mama, you're smiling. I touched my face. I guess I am. Sweetheart, with your eyes, I looked at her. 8 years old and still believing in miracles. Still hoping. Still trusting that good things could happen. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd forgotten how. By afternoon, I'd stopped trying to count the gifts. Started trying to count who I owed. Started making lists of names. Mrs. Chen the O'Malley's Mr. Kowalski. The arithmetic still wouldn't balance. Maybe that was the point. Maybe Grace doesn't calculate. I needed to pay my rent. Needed to beg Mr. Henderson the landlord for an extension. Needed to figure out which piece of furniture I could burn next to keep us warm until I could afford coal. I left Emily decorating our room with branches from the wreath she'd pulled off a few pieces. Was making our tiny space look like Christmas actually lived there. Mr. Henderson's office was 3 blocks away. I walked it rehearsing my speech, practicing my begging. I'd gotten good at swallowing pride. 6 months teaches you that. Mrs. Walker? Mr. Henderson looked up from his desk. Merry Christmas. Mr. Henderson, I need to speak with you about the rent. The rent? He looked confused. I know it's due tomorrow, and I wanted to ask if perhaps I could have another week. I have some sewing coming in, and I should be able to... Mrs. Walker, your rent's been paid. I stopped. What? Paid this morning, cash delivered. Enough for this month and next. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of his desk. Who paid it? No name given. Just cash in an envelope slipped under my door before dawn. I couldn't breathe right. Couldn't think. Are you certain? Quite certain. Mrs. Walker, you're paid through January. I walked back to our building in a daze. Rent paid, 2 months, cash, no name. Everyone knew. Everyone had seen me struggling. Everyone had watched me fail. The relief should have made me grateful. Instead, I just felt exposed. Mrs. Chen was in the hallway when I got back. She saw me, then looked away quick, too quick. Mr. Kowalski on the stairs tipped his hat too formally. The O'Malley children giggled when I passed. They all knew something I didn't. I made it back to our room. Emily was humming, arranging pine cones. The bread we'd baked was cooling. The coffee smell still hung in the air. Everything looked like Christmas. I felt like I was drowning. There was a knock at the door. I opened it, expecting another mystery basket. Instead, Thomas Brennan stood there, the quiet widower from the 3rd floor. Carpenter. Kept to himself mostly. I'd seen him around, but never really talked to him. He was holding something carved from wood. A little horse. Mrs. Walker, Merry Christmas. Mr. Brennan, I carved this for your little one. Saw her looking sad a few weeks back. Thought she might like it. Emily appeared beside me, gasped when she saw the horse. For me, Thomas smiled. It changed his whole face. If your mama says it's all right. I looked at the horse. Perfect detail. Smooth edges. Hours of work. You didn't have to. You've done... I stopped, confused. What had he done? Thomas looked confused, too. Just carved a toy. Ma'am? Christmas gift for a child. He didn't know. Didn't know about the baskets, the wreath, the paid rent. Just came to give Emily a toy because he'd noticed she was sad. Thank you. Mr. Brennan, it's beautiful. Emily took the horse like it was made of gold. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Little miss, Merry Christmas. He tipped his hat, turned to go. Mr. Brennan. My voice stopped him. Ma'am, thank you. Really? He nodded. Something in his eyes understood. Something that knew about loss and loneliness and trying to be kind anyway. After he left, I held that wooden horse and cried again. Different tears this time. Not despair. Something else. Something I didn't have a name for yet. Something that felt dangerously like hope. Emily was on the floor playing with her wooden horse, making it gallop across the floorboards. First time I'd seen her really play in months. The sound of her making horse noises, talking to herself, creating whole worlds where wooden horses could run free. I'd managed to get our stove going with some of the gifted wood. Real warmth in the room. We'd burned the last of the cold days ago, Been freezing since, but tonight it was warm. Tonight felt different. There was a soft knock at the door. Thomas Brennan stood there again, hat in his hands. Mrs. Walker, sorry to disturb. Wondered if I might have a word. Emily looked up. Mr. Brennan. Look, my horse is named Lightning. He smiled at her. Fine name for a fine horse. Miss? Then to me, just a moment of your time. Ma'am, if you can spare it. I nodded. Stepped into the hallway with him. He was quiet for a moment, looking for words. I wanted to tell you something. About today. About the gifts. My chest went tight. You know about them. I coordinated them, ma'am. The hallway tilted. You. But it wasn't just me. Wasn't my idea even. Was Mrs. Chen came to me 2 weeks ago? Said you'd mended her daughter's wedding coat. Wouldn't take payment. Said you'd been helping folks in this building for months, never asking anything back. I couldn't speak. Thomas kept going. Gentle. She wanted to do something for you. For Christmas. Asked me to help organize. We took up a collection. A collection everyone in the building contributed what they could. The O'Malleys gave bread. Mrs. O'Malley bakes for the hotel. Mr. Kowalski had fabric scraps from the tailor shop where he works. I brought the firewood. We all chipped in for the rent. I was shaking my head. That was different. I was just helping. This is community, ma'am. Same thing you've been doing for us. No. My voice came out sharp. What I did was helping. This is charity. Thomas looked at me for a long moment. His eyes were kind. Too kind. With respect. Mrs. Walker, you're wrong. I don't need... You mended Mrs. Chen's wedding coat. Wouldn't take a penny. She couldn't afford... You watched the O'Malley children when their mama got sick. 3 weeks. No charge? They needed... You helped Mr. Kowalski write letters to his family in Poland. Taught him English words. I went quiet. He was lonely. I finally said, so were you, ma'am. But you helped anyway. The words sat between us. Heavy. True. You've been giving to this building for months. Sewing, watching children, bringing soup when people were sick. Never kept track. Never asked for anything back. That's community. That's what neighbors do. That was different. How? I struggled for an answer. Couldn't find one that made sense. Thomas's voice went softer. You've been giving blessings all year, Mrs. Walker. We just gave them back. Something cracked inside me. Some wall I'd built careful and high. I lost my wife 2 years ago, Thomas said. Sarah. She got sick one winter. Was gone by spring. Left me with my boy. James. He was 6 then. I'm sorry. Took me 18 months to let anyone help. 18 months of doing everything alone because I thought that's what strong men do. Thought accepting help meant I'd failed. He looked at me direct. Don't take that long. Mrs. Walker, your little one needs to see you smile. Really smile. Not the brave face you put on. The real thing. My throat was too tight to speak. Merry Christmas, ma'am. He tipped his hat, turned toward the stairs. Mr. Brennan. He stopped. Thank you for telling me. For everything. You're welcome. Mrs. Walker, hope you and your daughter have a blessed evening. I watched him go. Stood in that hallway after he'd gone. Just breathing. Just trying to understand what had happened. He was offering me a mirror I didn't want to look into. in it. I might see that I mattered, that my help had value, that needing help didn't erase the helping I'd done. The reflection terrified me. I went back inside. Emily was still playing, making her wooden horse jump over obstacles made from spools of thread. Mama, you're crying again. Happy tears, sweetheart. Are there different kinds of tears? Yes. Emmy? Yes, there are. I sat down beside her, watched her play, thought about what Thomas had said. What if they were right? What if my midnight sewing and borrowed time babysitting actually meant something? What if I'd been keeping the wrong ledger all along? What if I was worth helping? The thought was so foreign I didn't know what to do with it. Emily fell asleep early, worn out from excitement and bread and joy. She clutched that wooden horse like it might disappear if she let go. Smiled in her sleep, real peace on her face. I sat at the table in the dark, surrounded by gifts. The bread, half-eaten, the fabric scraps, sorted into piles, the wreath still on our door, smelling of pine and promise. The firewood outside, stack of warmth we didn't have to earn. The rent, paid by people who thought I mattered. All of it evidence that I'd been seen, known, cared for. I'd spent 6 months trying to be invisible, trying to need nothing, trying to prove I could survive alone. And they'd seen me anyway. Fear started talking then. It had been waiting for quiet. Fear's always loudest in the dark. What if they expect things now? What if they think I owe them? What if I can't pay this back? What if I let myself depend on this help and it vanishes the way Henry vanished? What if I'm not worth it? That was the real fear, the one underneath all the others. I could leave. The thought came sudden and clear. Could pack our things tonight, be gone by morning. New town, new start, new walls. Nobody would know I'd failed. Nobody would expect anything. I'd be safe. Alone, but safe. I looked at Emily sleeping. Thought about her letter to Santa. Thought about what running would teach her. That accepting love is dangerous. That community is debt. That when people see you and love you anyway, you flee. What kind of mother would that make me? I thought about Thomas. About him saying it took 18 months to accept help. About the gentleness in his voice when he told me not to take that long. He'd lost his wife. Knew what this grief felt like. Knew the temptation to wall yourself off and call it strength. And he was telling me there was another way. I sat there in the dark with my fear. Didn't run from it. Didn't fix it. Just let it exist without letting it make my choices. Fear is a faithful companion. It followed me from Boston to this frontier town. Sat beside me through Henry's funeral. Whispered through 6 months of widowhood. It knew my voice better than anyone living. And that night, it almost convinced me to run. Almost. But I kept thinking about Emily's smile today. About real butter on real bread. About Mrs. Chen who wanted to thank me. About the O'Malleys who thought I'd help them. About Thomas carving a toy because he'd noticed my daughter was sad. About a whole building of people who saw my need and met it with grace. What if I let them love me? I whispered it to the empty room. What if I'm not worth it? The real question. The fear underneath. What if you are? That question sat there in the dark. Waited. Insisted on being considered. Hours passed. Midnight came. Went. I didn't pack. Didn't plan escape routes. Just sat there with my fear. Like sitting with an old enemy. Acknowledging it without obeying it. What was I teaching Emily by staying? That accepting love takes courage. That community is gift, not debt. That being seen and loved anyway is grace worth accepting. Maybe the bravest thing wasn't accepting the gifts. Maybe it was accepting what the gifts meant. I was worth giving to. I mattered. My presence had value beyond my usefulness. The thoughts felt dangerous. Revolutionary. True. I thought about my mother, back in Boston. How she'd raised me to never be a burden. Never ask for help. Stand on your own feet. Don't owe anyone anything. I'd thought that was strength. Thought that was dignity. Maybe it was just another kind of prison. Dawn came the way it always does, slowly. Then, all at once. Gray light through our dirty window. Emily stirring in bed. The wreath still green on our door. I was still sitting there. Still surrounded by gifts. Still terrified. But I hadn't run. That counted for something. Maybe counted for everything. I'd chosen to stay. To try. To let Christmas morning be the beginning, instead of a moment to run from. Fear was still there. But for the first time in 6 months, it wasn't making my decisions. I stood up, stretched my stiff back, looked at the fabric scraps. Today, I'd make something, not because I owed anyone, because I wanted to. Because I was brave enough to say thank you. Boxing Day morning, I woke with my mind made up. I was going to thank them. Every single person who'd contributed. I was going to knock on their doors and say the 2 words I'd forgotten how to say. Thank you. It was the hardest thing I could think of doing. Harder than burying Henry. Harder than counting $7 and knowing they weren't enough. Harder than surviving 6 months alone. But I was going to do it anyway. I spent the morning at my sewing table with the gifted fabric. Cut careful, stitched straight. Made small things that mattered. A pot holder for Mrs. Chen quality stitching, flowers embroidered in the corner. A handkerchief for Mr. Kowalski, his initials in the corner. A little doll dress for the eldest O'Malley girl, made from the prettiest scrap I had. Each piece was acknowledgement. I see what you did. I accept it. I give back. Emily watched me work. Mama, who are those for our neighbors? Sweetheart, the ones who gave us gifts yesterday. Are we giving gifts back? We're saying thank you. That's good, Emily said seriously. Saying thank you is important. Out of the mouths of 8-year-olds, we started with Mrs. Chen. I knocked on her door. Emily beside me holding the potholder wrapped in paper. Mrs. Chen opened the door. Saw me. Her eyes immediately went bright with tears. Mrs. Walker, Merry Christmas. Mrs. Chen, I wanted to thank you for. No, I thank you. My daughter's wedding, the coat you made beautiful, she looked like princess. Mrs. Chen was crying now. You gave ours. Took no money. Said was honor to help. You gave honor to our family. I held out the potholder. It's not much, but she took it like I was giving her gold. Is beautiful. You are too good, too kind. You're the kind one, Mrs. Chen. You saw I needed help. You organized. You helped us first. So many times. We just wanted to help back. Emily tugged my hand. Mama's smiling with her eyes now. Mrs. Chen laughed through tears. Yes. She is best gift. We went to the O'Malleys next. 5 children came running when their mother opened the door. Miss Margaret, Mama says you're angel. I handed the eldest girl her doll dress. I'm not an angel, sweetheart. Their mother, Mrs. O'Malley, was wiping her hands on her apron. You are, though, Mrs. Walker. You watched my children when I was sick. 3 weeks. Never asked for a penny. You needed help. And you gave it. Mrs. O'Malley's voice got thick. Doctor said if I'd kept working, I'd have died. You gave me time to heal. You gave me my life back. The weight of her words hit me. I'd thought I was just watching children. Turned out I'd been saving lives. I'm glad you're well. I managed. The eldest girl was already wearing her new doll dress over her old one. It's beautiful, Miss Margaret. Can you teach me to sew like you? I'd be honored. We climbed the stairs to Mr. Kowalski's room. He answered the door, suspenders over his undershirt, gray hair standing up. Mrs. Walker, little miss, Merry Christmas. I held out the handkerchief. Thank you, Mr. Kowalski, for the fabric scraps, for the gifts. He took the handkerchief, saw his initials. His eyes filled. Is beautiful work. You're the one who gave me beautiful fabric to work with. He shook his head. You teach me words. I write to family. They write back. His English got more broken with emotion. First time in 5 years. You give me family again. I just helped with letters. You give me voice. Give me connection. He pressed the handkerchief to his chest. Now I have this. We'll treasure it. Each door I knocked on. Each thank you I said. Something shifted. I'd thought I was accepting charity. Turns out I'd been giving blessings. The whole time, I saved Thomas for last. Found him in his workshop behind the building, teaching his son James to sand wood. Mr. Brennan. He looked up, saw me, smiled. Mrs. Walker. James. This is Mrs. Walker and her daughter Emily from upstairs. James was maybe 10, with his father's quiet eyes. Hello, ma'am. Emily. Emily waved shyly. I held out the handkerchief I'd made. His initials embroidered careful in the corner. I made this for you. It's not much, but it's honest work, and it's given freely. Thomas took it, examined the stitching. It's fine work. You gave us fine gifts. Just coordinated what people wanted to give. You did more than that. I made myself say it, made myself be honest. You told me the truth I needed to hear, about community, about worth, about not taking 18 months to learn what you already know. He looked at me direct. Something passed between us, understanding, recognition. Two people who'd lost their spouses and learned the hard way that grief makes everything harder. I'm glad you heard it. Ma'am, Margaret. The word came out before I'd decided to say it. You can call me Margaret. Margaret. He said it gentle, like a gift being unwrapped, careful. James was looking between us with interest. Emily was suddenly very busy looking at wood shavings. I gathered my courage, all of it, every scrap I had. Would you and James join Emily and me for supper tonight? Nothing fancy, just what we have. But I'd like the company. The words hung there. Invitation, vulnerability, hope. Thomas's smile spread slow. We'd be honored. Margaret. My name in his mouth sounded different. Sounded like a beginning. 6 o'clock. We'll be there. I walked back to our building with Emily, my heart hammering so hard I thought she might hear it. I'd done it. Invited connection, invited possibility. Invited all the things I'd been afraid of for 6 months. But I'd done it. Said the words. Made the choice. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. Because I was worth it. Emily squeezed my hand. Mama, I like Mr. Brennan and James. Me too, sweetheart. Are they going to be our friends? I hope so. Emmy, I hope so. I'd spent 6 months proving I didn't need anyone. That Boxing Day, I proved something harder. I could need people and still be strong. I could receive and still have dignity. I could lean and still stand. Between Mrs. Chen's tears and the O'Malley children's hugs and Mr. Kowalski showing me the letters his family had sent back, something had shifted. I'd thought I was accepting charity. Turns out I'd been giving blessings. The whole time. And now I was choosing to keep giving them. But differently. With my heart open instead of locked. New Year's Day came cold and bright. A week since Christmas. A week since everything changed. I was at my sewing table, teaching Emily to make basic stitches. Her small fingers were clumsy on the needle, but she was trying, concentrating so hard her tongue stuck out. Like this, Mama. Just like that. Sweetheart, you're doing beautifully. The apartment was warm. We had coal. Now Thomas had helped me purchase it at a good price from his supplier. The kind of thing neighbors do for each other. Community. He'd called it. I was learning what that meant. Thomas and James had come for supper Boxing Day. We'd eaten bread and soup and talked. Just talked. About nothing important and everything important. About James's schooling and Emily's wooden horse and how the winter was shaping up. About being lonely. About being scared. About learning to let people in. They'd come back 2 days later. Then again on New Year's Eve. It was becoming a pattern. A rhythm. The beginning of something I wasn't rushing to name. I didn't need to name it. I just needed to let it grow. My relationship with the rest of the building had transformed too. I still helped people mended Mrs. Chen's hem. Watched the O'Malley baby so his mother could work. But now they helped back. Mrs. Chen brought me tea sometimes. The O'Malleys shared their bread. Mr. Kowalski taught Emily to count in Polish. Give and receive and give. Community is a circle, not a straight line. I'd gotten 3 new sewing clients since Christmas. All from Mrs. Chen's recommendations. Good work. Steady pay. I'd be able to afford rent next month without gifts. Without miracles. Though maybe that was the miracle. That I'd learned to accept help when I needed it. That I'd learned to give without keeping score. That I'd learned my worth wasn't measured by how much I sacrificed. Thomas had offered me workspace in his shop, room to spread out fabric, better light for sewing. I'd accepted. Of course I'd accepted. I was getting better at that. At saying yes when people offered kindness. Emily finished her stitches, held up the fabric. Look, Mama. Beautiful work, Emmy. I meant it. The stitches were crooked but earnest. Perfect. Can I make something for Mr. Brennan? If you'd like. I want to make something for James, too. He's nice. He is nice. Emily went quiet for a moment, then looked at me. Mama, are we rich now? The question caught me. I put down my needle. What makes you ask that? Sweetheart, we have food and coal and friends. That's rich, right? My throat went tight. Yes. Emmy, that's very rich. Were we always rich, even when we were sad? I thought about it. About Christmas Eve counting $7. About Mrs. Chen and the O'Malleys and Mr. Kowalski and Thomas. About all the ways I'd been giving and receiving without realizing it. We've been rich all along. Sweetheart, I just didn't know how to count it. She nodded like that made perfect sense. You know how now, though? I'm learning. Emily went back to her stitching. I watched her small fingers work, watched her concentrate, watched her be a child again instead of worrying about her mother's smile. I was smiling now, really smiling, with my eyes like she'd asked Santa for. Spring would come to this frontier town the way it always did, slowly, then all at once. But I'd already learned about thawing, already learned about growth, already learned that frozen ground still holds seeds. That Christmas taught me the mathematics I'd been doing wrong all year. I'd been subtracting my needs from my worth, dividing my value by my grief, multiplying my giving by my shame. The new arithmetic was simpler. Community multiplies blessings. Vulnerability adds strength. Receiving equals grace. And love. Love doesn't subtract or divide. It just grows. I looked around our small apartment. At the wreath still on the door, though Christmas had passed. At Emily's wooden horse on the shelf, pride of place. At the 2 coffee cups I set out every morning now without thinking. At the fabric scraps that had become thank you gifts. At the thank you gifts that had become friendship. At all the ways this hard life had cracked me open and let light in, I'd thought the miracle was gifts appearing Christmas morning. But the real miracle was learning I was worthy of receiving them, that I'd been worthy all along. That counting blessings isn't about having more, it's about seeing different, about measuring worth by connection, not dollars. About understanding that a woman alone can survive, but a woman surrounded by community can thrive. Henry would have liked Thomas, I thought, would have liked that I'd let someone kind into our lives, would have wanted me to keep living, keep opening, keep choosing joy when I could find it. I'd spent so long protecting my heart, I'd forgotten hearts were meant to be used, meant to love and be loved, meant to break and heal and break again. And that was just being alive. That was just being human. Emily held up her finished practice piece, crooked stitches in a crooked line. The most beautiful thing I'd seen. I did it. Mama, you did. Sweetheart, you absolutely did. She smiled. I smiled back. With my eyes, and somewhere, I thought, wherever he was, Henry was smiling too.